I do think that this is something we've gone back and forth about, and we go back to a lot. And I do wonder, especially this year, because I understand the dynamic with Andrew Wiggins. I get why a lot of people feel the way they do. People want Andrew to be more engaged. They want him to be a better player than he is, even though he's a really good player. He's got that thing where he was the number 1 overall pick, and people look at him and go, God, you can get 18 points in an NBA game just by getting out of bed.
Sleep.
Yeah, just by getting out of bed. So then when he gets 18 points, they're like, that's all he did today. He just got out of bed. Now, is that fair? Maybe, maybe not. We could have that debate, but let's just talk about this year's Warriors. Why is Andrew Wiggins maybe the only one who sort of makes you all feel that way with that word, inconsistency?
That's not true.
I think it
Klay
is.
Thompson's been very inconsistent.
No. They all have been.
Right.
But Andrew seems to be the only one. Klay for a different reason. Klay is about decision making. Nobody asked for Klay.
Klay has been assailed in the same way that Andrew has.
I don't agree. I think Klay has been assailed for decision making. People don't ask Klay the same way they don't ask Steph. You don't have to make all the threes. But, dude, stop gunning. Stop gunning, and then get that look off your face. Like, why do you look so mad? Why are you pointing at the other bench, the forefingers, slumping the shoulders? That's a body language thing. I bet Andrew Wiggins we would talk about completely differently if he sulked all over the floor whenever he missed. But he doesn't. He just bebops along and gets back on D.
Well, he's always, quote, sulking. His expression is the same for the most part.
I don't think it looks like a sulk.
No, it's just Andrew.
Right. It's
Andrew.
It's like a visual version of monotone.
Right.
And that's what gets people. Like, every Warrior has been inconsistent this year. Haven't they? All of them.
Well, of course. Over 60 games, you're not going to find anybody who is consistent.
I don't agree with that. Like, Steph Curry has absolutely, that's what makes a superstar.
He's not been consistent. His last 8 games have been pretty uncomfortable.
Consistent doesn't mean you're great every night. Nobody's great every night. But by and large, even Curry this year, maybe it's not up to his normal year, but he's averaging 28 a game. That's consistent. That's like Steph Curry you can rely on most nights, just about all the time, to come out and be your leading scorer if that's really necessary. But yeah, by his standards, he's been inconsistent. And who the hell hasn't been? Klay Thompson, inconsistent. Jonathan Kuminga, inconsistent. Draymond Green, not even consistently there.
Right.
Everybody has been inconsistent. It's why Steve Kerr is playing 11 or 12 different people, because he hasn't found a consistent lineup that he can rely on. But, boy, it gets us with Andrew. And when I look at those last 6, 7, 8 games, if you want, I don't get knocked off kilter by the fact that there's only one, or I guess 2, if you go back to that Philadelphia game on Wednesday, February 7th, he had 21. He had 20 against the Lakers in their 18-point win over L.A. Those are only 2 20-point games.
Right.
So what? He shot well over 50% during that run. He has absolutely been fantastic from beyond the 3-point line.
50%, yeah, 2 for 4 on the average.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. 50% from 3 is great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh, yeah.
He's largely, in most of these games, he's rebounding the basketball, not at a high level, but
4.8 a game.
Yeah.
He's rebounding the ball, not as many as Pajemski, but
here's how I would say it.
He's been fine.
The Andrew that we've seen in the almost 10 games before he left is the Andrew that this team needs him to be. I don't think the 2 years ago Andrew, I don't even think there's room for that player anymore.
Oh, there is.
There's too much Kuminga.
Absolutely room
There's
for
too
that.
much Kuminga. There's too much Pajemski. There are not enough shots. This is a different team in my view.
In my view, if you are the Andrew that you were 2 years ago, then Kuminga and Pajemski, you give up shots, because I'm that Andrew. I'm the Andrew that was a game away from being the NBA Finals MVP. He was going to be the Finals MVP until Steph Curry went absolutely bananas in Boston. Andrew was that guy. So I'm sorry, Jonathan and Brandon, but you give up the shots to me because I'm that player. But he hasn't been that player. And you can talk about the last 9 games. He's averaging 15 points a game over that stretch. And yeah, 50% from 3. Good. He's shooting 4 threes a game. He's 2 for 4 on average from 3-point. Good.
What about your eye test?
The eye test he's been better, but he's not the player that he was, and he's not the player that you need him to be if you're going to be a team that's going to make some noise. He's not your second best player, and you need him to be your second best player. Your second best player, for the most part, has been either Kuminga or Draymond. And if you're going to ride with Jonathan Kuminga as your second best player, well, then you're a 10 seed because he's not ready to be a real number 2 on a winning team.
Interesting.
Andrew Wiggins has been a real number 2 on a winning team, and he won a championship.
For a month and a half.
He was an all-star. Yeah. For crying out loud.
Yeah, but he wasn't. That's not the player he was in the playoffs was not the player he was the whole regular season.
Correct. But has he shown any flashes of being that player? And, Bob Fitzgerald today, 315. Yeah. Hopefully he can talk me off the ledge as far as what Andrew is and what Andrew could be. But I see a player who is, back to the pre-championship level, Andrew Wiggins. He's a good player. He's a nice player. He's probably your 4th best player, and that's not good enough.
Well, again, we see it differently because I don't think there's room for that player this year, and I'm a little higher on what Jonathan Kuminga maybe can do over the next 2 months, maybe than it sounds like you are. And I'd also say there would be, I don't even know if this exists, but maybe a fan base cost if what you were talking about became reality. If Andrew just, again, there it is, that somebody lit a fire on his butt, and Andrew Wiggins just morphed into the guy that he was exactly 2 years ago and went on a playoff run, and you're like, yeah, Kuminga, just let's minimize you again. I don't think the Warrior fan base has a thirst for that. I don't know that the Warriors have a thirst for that.
I don't know why you would have to minimize him for that. Are you saying that he can't?
That's the way the NBA works. You can't have 5 people averaging 25 a night. There's one ball. There's a pecking order. There's strategy that goes into the offensive end of the floor in terms of who gets the ball and when and where and all of those things. And so if Wiggins is going to be that aggressive, Jonathan Kuminga is going to give something up, and I don't even know if people want that. Like, Jonathan Kuminga has finally, my God, finally, these last 2 months have been totally earth-shattering for him, for his future, for his contractual hopes, for his playing time, for the Warriors and their fans in terms of thinking what he can be. My opinion has completely changed. I still don't know about this whole idea of superstar, but I questioned at the new year whether Jonathan Kuminga could ever be a 20-point per game guy in the NBA.
And he's averaging not 25, but he's averaging 20.6. And this is me taking out the Boston game.
That's
because
fine.
The Boston game to me, you go ahead and throw that out. He had 6 points in 20 minutes. That wasn't really a game for anybody. But over the course of since January 12th, when he had 24 against Chicago, over the course of 22 games, he averaged 21 a night. That's good.
Yeah, and I think he can do that for a career.
And I think that you can get Andrew from where he is, which is 12 and change, 15 of late. You can get him up to 18 and not cost Kuminga any bit of his development.
If you 3 points per game per night, that's how many more shots is that? That's an adjustment in minutes. That's an adjustment in shot selection. That's an adjustment. We know that Kuminga
and Wiggins have been playing really well together with Draymond Green.
Yeah, they were terrible early, and now they've got it.
And they were terrible when Draymond was out. So now that Draymond's back, those two together have been great. So I don't think that Andrew is going to bite into anything that Jonathan's doing.
Let me ask you this real quick, because I think our crossover kind of got everybody in this sort of situation where it's I don't know, kind of loud and tense about Andrew Wiggins, which is kind of not where my head was when we walked in the building. What do you want to say today about this?
I'm excited he's back. And I want Andrew, it's guarded because I would love for Andrew to be the Andrew that we know that he can be, But the reality is he's not that guy.
Okay.
So I'm excited that he's back. I'm glad that he's working through his personal issues, but at the same time, I don't have high expectations for him.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, expectations.
That's where I'm at.
I
don't know where you're at with Andrew.
I'm just trying to shove all expectations out the window, as you know. Let's go night to night with all of these guys. The Warriors are full strength. I don't know how many times we've been able to say that this year, so I'm thrilled.